You ever notice how quiet it gets when the damage is done? Not when it's happening. No, that part's loud. Screaming, glass breaking, hearts shattering in places you didn't even know existed. But after it's all said and done, silence. That's the part that stays. The echoes fade, but that silence, it moves in, unpacks its bags, becomes part of the furniture. And here you are, sitting in it, letting it press down on you like it owns you, like they own you. The people who hurt you, broke you, used you like a cheap tool, disposable, replaceable. You think they're out there somewhere haunted by what they did? No, not yet. Because right now, you're doing the haunting for them. Every time you replay it in your head, every time you feel small, worthless, hollow, you're their ghost. Congratulations, you're haunting yourself so they don't have to. But here's the thing, that's not where the story ends. Not unless you leave it there. See, pain has an expiration date, but guilt is immortal if you know how to light the fuse. You don't have to get even. You don't have to do anything to them. Life's already better at revenge than you'll ever be. You just have to stop carrying the weight they dumped on you. Drop it right there in the dirt and walk away. Because the second you stop bleeding from their wounds, that's when the real haunting starts for them. You think they care? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, when they're sitting alone, staring at nothing, that nothing will stare back, and it'll look a lot like you. The silence will get loud. Their mind will start whispering the things they did, and they'll wish God. They'll wish you were still broken. Because as long as you're broken, they don't have to feel bad. But the moment you rise, the moment you build something out of the ruins, that's the curse they can't escape. See, people don't regret what they did to the ones who stayed down. They regret the ones who got back up, the ones who lived better, loved harder, thrived louder. That's the itch they can't scratch. That's the nightmare they can't wake up from. Not your pain, your healing. But here you are, stuck in phase one, letting their fingerprints define you, like you're a canvas and they're the artist. No, they were just the mess. The real art is what you do with what's left. You want to talk about darkness? Fine, let's talk about it. Darkness isn't the enemy. It's a tool, a canvas where light gets to show off. Without darkness, light's just average. But with it, it's a beacon, a rebellion. Think about it. Really think about it. Every scar you've got, proof you survived. Every crack, evidence you didn't break all the way. You're not damaged, you're detailed. You're not weak. You're written in a language only the strong can read. So stop acting like you're fragile glass when you're the shards people cut themselves on when they tried to shatter you. They wanted to hurt you? Fine. Let that hurt be the blueprint for something unbreakable. Not because you're ignoring the pain, but because you're building with it. Like bricks made from the rubble. Stronger, because they were broken first. You're sitting here asking, why me? Wrong question. It was always going to be you. Because not everyone's meant to be average. Some people are born to be forged in fire. You don't get to pick the flames, but you do get to decide whether you melt or harden. You think this is it? This feeling? This heaviness? Nah. It's just the part before the plot twist, the chapter before the comeback. But you've got to turn the page. You can't just sit here rereading the same paragraph of pain, hoping the words will change. You have to change. And don't you dare sit there thinking you're too far gone. That's not how it works. You're not a broken vase waiting to be glued back together. You're molten metal waiting to be reshaped, stronger, sharper. You get to decide what you become, a weapon or a warning. Let me tell you something ugly. People don't remember the ones who stayed sad. They remember the ones who got mad, who got up, who made something so undeniable that even their enemies had to clap. So get up. Not because it's easy, not because it doesn't hurt, but because staying down isn't who you are. You're not the story they wrote. You're the plot twist they didn't see coming. And when they're lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering why the guilt won't shut up, that's when they'll realize it's not the bad things they did that haunts them. It's the fact that it didn't break you. You know what's funny? Not ha-ha funny. The other kind. The bitter, sharp kind that tastes like metal when it hits the back of your throat. It's that life has this twisted sense of humor. It doesn't always punish the wicked or reward the good. No. Life doesn't care about your moral compass. It cares about one thing: who gets back up. You think the people who broke you are out there living guilt-free lives, smiling in pictures, laughing like nothing happened? Maybe. Probably. But here's the joke. Happiness built on someone else's pain is like cheap glue. It doesn't hold. It pretends for a while, sure. But give it time. Oh, time's the real villain here. Time's the one that sneaks up when the party's over, when the noise dies down and it's just them and their thoughts. That's when the real haunting begins. Not with your tears, not with your anger, but with your silence. You see, people expect you to crumble. They expect you to fall apart, to drown in the wreckage they left behind, because that makes them feel big, powerful, like they had control. But when you stand up, when you rise from the ashes with nothing but scars and spite stitched into your skin, that's when the fear kicks in. Because suddenly, you're not a victim, you're a survivor. And survivors carry something heavier than pain. They carry proof. Proof that nothing, not betrayal, not heartbreak, not even the darkest days could finish them. They didn't just hurt you, they gave you something, a gift wrapped in barbed wire, pain sharp enough to carve out the truth. And the truth is, you don't need them. You never did. All they did was show you the parts of yourself you hadn't met yet. The part that doesn't flinch, the part that doesn't beg, the part that stares back at the abyss and doesn't blink. But here's where it gets dark. Darker than you're ready for. The real revenge? It's not in proving them wrong. It's in not needing to prove anything at all. It's in walking past them like they're just another face in the crowd. Like they never mattered enough to leave a mark. Because indifference, that's the sharpest knife. Regret feeds off attention. Starve it. You think you're broken? Good. Broken things have edges. You're sharp now, dangerous. Not because you're filled with hate, but because you survived without it. That's power. Quiet, heavy power. The kind that doesn't shout. It just is. People talk about closure like it's something you find, like it's hidden under rocks or tucked away in old conversations. But closure isn't found, it's made. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to understand, to feel bad, to make it right. That's giving them too much credit, too much space in your head. No, closure is when you stop waiting for them to fix what they broke. When you realize you're not glass, you're a mirror. And all they ever saw when they hurt you was their own reflection, their own weakness. Let me tell you something real, brutally real. They didn't hurt you because you were weak. They hurt you because you were strong, because there was something in you that scared them. Maybe it was your kindness, your light, your resilience. Something they couldn't control, couldn't own, couldn't destroy. So they tried to break it, because fragile people smash what they can't understand. But here you are, breathing, bleeding maybe, but breathing. And that's enough. Because every breath you take without them, that's a victory. Every smile you fake until it's real again, that's a rebellion. You don't owe them your sadness. You don't owe them your story. They were just a chapter, not the whole book. You're not the person they left behind. You're the person who crawled out of that wreckage, bruised and burning, but alive. And that matters. More than their guilt, more than their memory, more than anything they ever took from you. You ever see a forest after a wildfire? It's ugly, blackened, ash everywhere. But give it time, and you'll see green poking through the charred ground. Not despite the fire, but because of it. The fire didn't just destroy, it cleared the way for something new, stronger, wilder. That's you. The fire wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And one day, maybe not soon, maybe not even when you expect it, you'll laugh. Not because it's funny, but because you'll realize you're still standing, despite it all. because of it all. And they'll still be haunted, not by ghosts, not by memories, but by the simple, crushing fact that they couldn't break you. Now get up. Not because I said so, not because it's poetic or dramatic. Get up, because you're not done. Because this story isn't over. Because the next chapter doesn't write itself. And when you do, don't look back. Let the past haunt itself. You know, people love to talk about moving on like it's some clean process. Like there's a checklist. Cry a little, scream into a pillow, write some sad poetry, and then, bam, you're healed. But that's not how it works, is it? Moving on isn't some neat little package tied with a bow. It's messy. It's ugly. It's waking up one day feeling like you finally made it, only to crash the next day because a song, a street, or some random stranger's laugh pulled you right back to square one. But here's the truth. No one tells you. That's part of the process. Healing isn't linear. It's a battlefield. Some days you win. Some days you lose. And that's okay. Because every scar, every setback, every miserable morning you drag yourself out of bed when you'd rather disappear, that's progress. That's survival in its rawest form. It's not about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. See, the people who hurt you, they counted on you staying broken. They banked on it. Because as long as you're down there, buried under the weight of what they did, they don't have to face themselves. But every time you stand up, every time you breathe without their name stuck in your throat, you're forcing them to confront a truth they can't escape. They didn't win. And that's the thing about pain. It's loud at first, deafening. But if you sit with it long enough, really sit with it, you realize it's just noise. White noise. Background static. It only controls you if you let it. But once you recognize it for what it is, it loses its power. It becomes part of the scenery. Like old graffiti on a wall, you don't bother looking at anymore. You ever notice how the people who hurt you move on like nothing happened? Like you were just a pit stop on their road trip of self-destruction? It burns, doesn't it? Feels like they walked away with a piece of you, leaving you to pick up the scraps. But here's the thing. They didn't take anything from you. They can't. All they did was expose the parts of you that needed to be rebuilt. Stronger, sharper. They left you in pieces? Good. Now you get to decide how to put yourself back together. Not like before. Better. Because the old version of you let them in. The new version, the one forged in this fire, unrecognizable. That's the real victory. Not becoming who you were, but becoming someone they'd never be able to touch again. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for your healing, not the people who broke you, not the ones who watched and did nothing. You don't have to justify your anger, your sadness, your growth. Your journey is yours. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Their confusion is not your burden. You think they're not haunted? Oh, they are. Maybe not today. Maybe not when they're surrounded by distractions, drowning in noise, pretending to be fine. But when it's quiet, really quiet, that's when it creeps in. Guilt doesn't knock. It slips through the cracks when you least expect it. It's a shadow that never leaves, no matter how bright the lights are. And the irony, the harder they try to forget, the more they remember. Because guilt isn't about the people you hurt. It's about the parts of yourself you can't face. They'll carry that weight long after you've put yours down. So why are you still holding on? Why are you carrying their mistakes like they belong to you? Drop it. Let it rot where it fell. You've got better things to do, like living, like becoming the version of yourself they never believed you could be. And when that day comes, when you look in the mirror and don't see the cracks anymore, you'll realize something powerful. It was never about them. It was always about you, your strength, your resilience, your ability to rise, not because they hurt you, but despite it. You are not what happened to you. You are what you decided to become after. And trust me, that will haunt them more than any revenge ever could. You know what's even more twisted? The fact that the people who hurt you, they never expected you to survive. They thought the damage they caused would be permanent, like graffiti sprayed across your soul. Loud, ugly, impossible to erase. But here's the punchline. They underestimated you. They thought you'd collapse under the weight of their betrayal, that you'd suffocate in the silence they left behind. But you didn't. You're still here. Breathing, bleeding, sure, but breathing. And that's the part they'll never understand. Pain doesn't kill you. It shapes you. Pain is a sculptor with rough hands. It chisels away the weak parts, the illusions, the naivety. It carves out the truth, sharp and unkind. And what's left? Something raw, something real, something unbreakable. You think scars are signs of weakness? Number scars are proof that the wound closed, that you fought, that you lived. They're not reminders of what hurt you. They're reminders of what couldn't. And here's the dark part, the part they'll never admit, not even to themselves. The people who hurt you, they're terrified of you, not because you'll hurt them back. No, that would be too simple. They're scared because you're still standing, because despite everything they did, you exist without them. You've built a life, carried on, even when it felt impossible. That's what haunts them. Not your absence, but your survival. You see, guilt isn't a loud monster. It's quiet. It waits. It's patient. It doesn't shout in crowded rooms. It whispers in empty ones. It shows up when the distractions fade, when the noise dies down, when it's just them and their reflection. And no matter how hard they try to drown it out, parties, people, new faces, it's always there, waiting, watching, because the truth doesn't need to scream to be heard. And the best part? You don't have to do anything to make that happen. No revenge plot, no dramatic confrontation. Just live, heal, grow. Become everything they said you couldn't. Because while you're out there, rebuilding, rising, thriving, they're stuck, trapped in a cage they built with their own hands, a prison made of regret. Think about that. While you're busy stitching your heart back together, they're haunted by the fact that they were the ones who ripped it apart. And no matter how far they run, they can't escape themselves. That's the real power, not in what you lost, but in what you gained. Strength, clarity, the kind of resilience that can't be faked. You've walked through hell and came out on the other side. You didn't just survive, you evolved. And that kind of growth, it's untouchable. You think this pain will last forever? It won't, but the lessons will. And one day, you'll wake up, and it won't hurt as much. The memories will still be there, sure, but they'll be distant echoes instead of roaring storms. You'll carry them like old battle scars, not with pride, maybe, but with acceptance. Because here's the thing. They may have written a few chapters of your story, but they don't get to write the ending. You do. Every day you get up, every step you take forward, you're reclaiming your narrative. They don't own your past. They don't define your future. And when you finally find peace, not the fragile, fleeting kind, but the deep, bone-deep kind, you'll realize something powerful. Their actions, their choices, they say more about them than they ever did about you. You weren't too much. You weren't not enough. You were exactly who you were meant to be. They just didn't know how to handle that. And that's their failure, not yours. So stop waiting for closure. Stop waiting for apologies that will never come. You don't need their words to heal. You don't need their validation to move on. You are your own closure. And the day you finally realize that, that's the day you win. Not because they're haunted, but because you're free. Free from their memory. Free from their mistakes. Free from the weight of what they did. And trust me, there's no greater revenge than that. You ever think about how silence can be louder than words? Funny, isn't it? You sit there in the dead quiet. No voices, no arguments, no chaos. And yet, that's when it screams the most. That's when the echoes hit hardest. Because silence has this way of pulling every buried thought to the surface, ripping the scabs off wounds you thought had healed. And that's exactly what's going to happen to them. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually they'll run out of noise to hide behind. And when that silence wraps around them, they'll hear everything they've been trying to forget. Every lie they told, every promise they broke, every time they looked into your eyes and saw the damage they caused but pretended it wasn't there. You know what's even better? You don't have to be part of that moment. You won't even be there. While they're busy suffocating in the emptiness they created, you'll be miles away, living, breathing, thriving. They won't get the satisfaction of knowing they still hold space in your mind, but their mind? Oh, you'll haunt it without even trying. That's the irony. You move on, you grow, you heal. And yet, you become the ghost that rattles their bones when they think they're finally safe from it all. And don't fool yourself into thinking they're invincible just because they acted like they didn't care. People wear indifference like armor, but even the thickest armor cracks. It just takes time. Time has a funny way of exposing the truth. It peels back the layers, strips away the bravado, until all that's left is the raw, ugly reality they've been trying to ignore. And when that moment hits, when they're staring down the barrel of their own regrets, they'll realize something that'll stick with them forever. They were the villain in someone else's story. But you're not a villain. You're not even a victim. You're the aftermath. You're the lesson they'll wish they learned sooner. The what if that keeps them awake at night. Because no matter how far they go, no matter how many new faces they surround themselves with, they can't outrun the memory of you. They can't escape the reality that they broke something they couldn't replace. And isn't that beautiful? Not because of revenge, not because of some twisted satisfaction, but because it means you mattered. You left a mark. Not the kind that fades with time, but the kind that digs deep, like ink on skin, permanent, undeniable. They'll remember you when they least expect it, in the spaces between conversations, in the pause before sleep, in the reflection they catch in the mirror when they're too tired to pretend anymore. You ever wonder why people hurt others? It's not because you were weak. It's because they were. It's easy to break something fragile. It takes strength to protect it. But they didn't have that strength. So they destroyed. They thought it made them powerful. But real power is in what survives the destruction. And here you are, still standing, still breathing, unbroken, even when you thought you were. Because broken isn't the same as destroyed. Broken means there's a chance to rebuild, to reshape, to become something new, something stronger, something they'll never recognize because it's no longer tied to their influence. You get to decide who you are now. You get to write the next chapter, and they don't get a say in it. So let them drown in their guilt. Let them carry the weight of what they did. You don't have to carry it with them. That's not your burden. That's not your story anymore. Your story is about survival, about growth, about rising from the ashes, not as the same person, but as someone who knows their worth. Not defined by who left, but by who stayed. And if the only person who stayed was you, then that's enough. More than enough. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who picked up the pieces. You're the one who kept going when it felt impossible. You're the one who refused to be erased. And that's what haunts them. Not the loss, not the regret. You. The fact that you survived them. The fact that you became more, not less, because of what they did. So don't waste another second trying to understand why they did it. Don't waste your breath asking questions they'll never answer. It doesn't matter. It never did. What matters is that you're still here. And every day you wake up, every breath you take, every step forward, you win. You know what's even funnier? They'll try to rewrite the story in their heads. Oh yeah, they'll twist it, bend it, reshape it, make themselves the victim, the misunderstood hero in a tale of heartbreak and mistakes. They'll tell themselves they had to hurt you, that you were too much, too complicated, too broken to handle. Because the truth is too ugly for them to face. It's easier to lie to themselves than admit they destroyed something real. It's easier to pretend you were the problem than face the fact that they were the coward. But deep down, beneath all that self-deception, they know. They know what they did. They'll carry it like a shadow, always there, lurking, waiting to creep in when the lights go out. Because that's how guilt works. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It sneaks into the quiet moments, slips through the cracks of forced smiles and fake laughs. It sits with them in the silence, reminding them of the person they could have been if they weren't so busy pretending to be someone else. And while they're stuck in that loop, reliving the same mistakes, you've moved on. Not because it was easy. Hell no. Moving on isn't some magical process where one day you wake up and the pain is gone. No, it's waking up every day with the weight still there, but choosing to stand up anyway. It's looking in the mirror and seeing the scars, but refusing to let them define you. It's learning to live with the ache, not because you're okay with what happened, but because you refuse to let it own you. They thought hurting you would leave you shattered, but you didn't shatter. You evolved. You adapted. You became something they never expected. Untouchable. Not because you're invincible, but because you faced the darkness and didn't let it swallow you. You stood in the storm, felt every drop of the rain, every howl of the wind, and you didn't fall. That kind of resilience, it's rare, it's powerful. It's something they'll never understand because they never had to fight the battles you did. And that's what'll haunt them the most. Not just what they did to you, but what you became in spite of it. You didn't just survive, you thrived. You built something out of the rubble, something real, something strong. And they'll see it. Oh, they'll see it. In your success, in your happiness, in every moment you shine without them. They'll see what they lost, not just once, but over and over again. Because here's the thing, they can move on, find new people, start fresh, but they'll never escape you. You're etched into their story, carved into the corners of their mind. They'll see your reflection in strangers, hear your voice in songs, feel your absence in the spaces where you used to be. And no matter how hard they try to fill that void, nothing will fit. Because you were never just another person. You were the person. The one they'll compare everyone else to. The standard they'll never admit you set. And you don't need to know any of that. You don't need their regret, their apologies, their validation, because your worth isn't tied to their recognition. It never was. You're not defined by the people who couldn't see your value. You're defined by how you carried yourself when they didn't. So keep going, keep building, keep living, not out of spite, not for revenge, but because you deserve to. Because your story is bigger than the chapters they tried to ruin. Because every step you take forward is proof that they failed, not in breaking you, but in stopping you. And that, my friend, is the punchline that'll echo in their heads long after you've forgotten their name.